Hi there. I'm glad to welcome you to my channel, World of Stories. I have a lot of interesting life stories that I want to share with you. Enjoy listening.
The mobile phone was buzzing with agitation, but Alice looked at the device indifferently. It was as if she and those calls had nothing to do with each other. Julia snorted discontentedly. "What is this?" "Alice, answer the persistent caller, I can't work like this." Reluctantly, the fiery brunette took the phone and headed towards the exit of the small office space. Julia reacted instantly. "Where are you going?" "I won't bother you." "Yes, talk here. I can't endure it." "Be careful not to run into the boss though. Not that you'll get into trouble for breaking the rules." Her verbal message missed the mark as Alice was already out the door. She didn't see the sly grimace on Julia's pretty face. Hiding behind the sprawling leaves of a ficus tree that adorned the corridor's interior, she pressed the green button on her mobile. She tried to speak softly because the employees of the main office of the company, Tasty and Bright, had excellent hearing. "Mrs. King. I asked you not to disturb me during work hours." In response, the nanny of her little daughter shouted. "Don't give me conditions. You're her mother. I have the right to call you anytime. Please, don't shout. Tell me, what's the matter? Is Zoe sick?" Mrs. King eased up a bit. "No, your little girl is fine. But for the past 2 days, I've been seeing bright spots in front of my eyes. I'm afraid another migraine is coming on. That's why I'm calling. Anyway, I refuse to look after your little girl." It was unexpected, and Alice yelled into the phone. "Mrs. King. We had an agreement. You're letting me down. I can't come and pick up Zoe right now." "Well, try your best. I'm giving you 1 day, so you better come get the girl tomorrow." "Wait. Don't hang up, Mrs. King. I'm willing to raise your salary by $500. "Really? Seems like you're in deep trouble, girl." "I don't want your money. I want a peaceful life. Instead, I'm stuck here like a prisoner. Can't go anywhere, can't invite guests. And honestly, I regret having anything to do with you. I could handle taking the child for a day, but fostering someone else's child around the clock? Why should I burden myself with such problems at my age? But, Mrs. King, I can't make it tomorrow. Maybe by the end of the week?" The nanny said sternly. "I'll be waiting for you tomorrow. If you don't come, I'll report it to the police." "Mrs. King." The phone already emitted short beeps. The girl's hands were trembling, and tears welled up in her eyes. She whispered, "Old witch." Thoughts were tangled in her inflamed mind. The only thing Alice understood clearly was the hopelessness of her situation. "I just need to calm down and think everything through properly." Julia's loud voice made her jump. "My dear girl. What are you doing hiding here? Whispering to yourself?" Alice stared intently at her friend. "Are you spying on me?" Cheerfulness quickly vanished from the girl's face. Julia tossed her golden curls back in a practiced move and only then asked her friend in response. "Alice. You must have fallen from a tree. Do you think I can't get mad at you and send you on a distant journey? Who do you think you are that I should watch over you? Do you believe that just because Carter noticed you, you're already one of the chosen ones? I didn't want to tell you, but I will. The boss has had so many girls like you." With anger flashing in her eyes, Julia turned sharply and clicked her heels towards the office. Alice rushed after her. "Julia. Sweetie. Don't be mad. There was just an unpleasant call, and you happened to be in the line of fire." The blonde girl tried to portray an impregnable fortress. But it didn't last long, and she fluttered her heavily mascaraed lashes before looking at Alice. But there was no anger or judgment in her friend's gaze anymore. "Say thank you that I'm so forgiving. I can't hold a grudge." Alice rushed to the plump girl with open arms. "Julia, you're the best." Such an open expression of love pleased Julia, but for appearances, she put on an angry expression. You know, what amazes me the most about girls like you? No. I have no idea. Audacity. For provincials like you, it's a pathological exaggeration. You push your way in everywhere. You're not even scared of a sign that says, "Caution." You couldn't care less about the rules of decency. Alice embraced her friend again. Your accusatory speech impressed me. But I think you envy us, I mean provincials like me. Admit it. You also want to be bold and audacious like us, but you can't. Julia sighed hopelessly. You're probably right. Okay, let's get to work, otherwise, we won't have time to prepare the documents, and the boss will tear us apart. I mean, me. It will be the same for both of us. You know that Carter doesn't have favorites. On the contrary, he's more demanding of those in his inner circle. Without looking away from the monitor, Julia asked sympathetically, "Do you also get it?" Alice nodded. More than you can imagine. Still, you're incredibly lucky because your future is guaranteed. I must admit, I envy you. Her fingers froze on the keyboard, and her gaze fixed on the ceiling. Julia. Everything in my life is like a tear-jerking soap opera. I grew up in a forgotten small town and was nothing special until I moved to the big metropolis, and then everything miraculously fell into place. Alice. I'm not that naive to believe in fairy tales for preschoolers. You made up this legend for your own consolation. Don't get me wrong, I'm genuinely happy for you, but I don't believe in such coincidences. In a moment of frankness, Julia wanted to say much more to her friend, but suddenly, the door to the office where they both worked on developing new ideas swung open. The boss's secretary, Zara, walked in with an important air and scanned the room with her gaze. Her behavior seemed robotic, and Julia couldn't help but laugh. Zara. Try to tone down that serious look. It doesn't suit you, no matter how hard you try. Zara blushed to the roots of her hair. Well, you know, Julia Morgan. Don't judge me based on yourself, Julia advised. Calm down, dear. I don't recommend messing with me. It's hazardous to your health. Julia flexed her biceps slightly, and Zara paled. Stumbling over her words, she said, Alice Jackson. The boss wants to see you urgently. Zara disappeared inconspicuously. She seemed to dissolve into the air like an ethereal creature. Julia turned to her friend. Why are you standing there? Go. As if we needed the boss showing up here. Take this with you. It's a full analysis of the 2 completed projects with estimates and other nonsense. Alice took the hefty folder from her friend's hands and slipped out the door. Julia looked at the clock. Oh, my goodness. It's already lunchtime. Half the day has passed, and we haven't accomplished anything. While Julia was lamenting the wasted time, Alice made her way to the boss's office. She carried herself with confidence, exuding an irresistible allure. The second quality perfectly complemented the first. This was evident from the glances of men who stood with a businesslike air in the corridor, heading in different directions. In her 2 years at the company, Alice had grown used to such glances and paid no attention to them. Her indifferent attitude towards the opposite sex was due to her involvement with Carter, and other men had simply ceased to exist for her. Zara had already reached the reception desk and was absent-mindedly typing on the computer keyboard, not taking her eyes off the monitor. She informed Alice, wait a minute. Mr. Brooks is in there right now. A fleeting look from the secretary settled on Alice's face, but the marketing department employee didn't reveal any concern. The mention of Leonard Brooks, the boss's companion since the first day she joined the company, almost physically repulsed her. Leonard Brooks was a type of self-absorbed peacock. From the very beginning of Alice's work in the office, he nitpicked at her about every little thing. This had caused her to shed many bitter tears and even consider quitting. Her fanatical belief in her dream held her back from taking that step. Her boss and patron, Mr. Lewis, became the symbol of it all. Once, she accidentally overheard Mr. Brooks reproaching Carter for his lack of discernment in choosing women. My friend. I categorically oppose you bringing your women into our company. Of course, you're a young and passionate man. I don't want to meddle in your personal life, but I don't understand. Why put it on display like that? Why did you bring this provincial girl here? Alice didn't hear Carter's response to this attack, but the boss's voice was raised. After his intervention, Leonard Brooks stormed out of the office with a red face. However, the boss's intervention had the opposite effect. Mr. Brooks began to nitpick at Alice even more. One day, he even tried to make advances towards her, for which he received a slap. Alice didn't tell her friend or even Carter about this outrageous incident. She didn't want to come between friends. These gloomy thoughts were interrupted by the sound of familiar footsteps. The last thing Alice wanted was to meet Mr. Brooks face to face. She turned her back to the office, but the hatred of her adversary was so intense that she felt a hot wave hit her back. Leonard Brooks couldn't just leave the accidental battlefield like that. He asked with a lily-like voice, tinged with venomous contempt. "Miss Jackson. Why aren't you at your workplace? Don't you have anything to do?" Alice turned sharply, and an enchanting smile appeared on her face. "Carter Lewis invited me. And if you're worried about our department's work, I'm pleased to inform you that everything is in order. Here, you can have a look. 2 new projects are already ready." The man rudely pushed away the folder she handed him and rushed out of the reception area, saying, "I don't know what's going on." He turned the company into his personal family lodge. Zara continued typing away, unperturbed. Such events in the boss's office were not unusual. Sometimes it even came to physical confrontation, and then she had to call security. That's why today's skirmish didn't particularly interest the secretary. When Mr. Brooks disappeared, she nodded approvingly at Alice. "Well done. You dealt with that hothead thoroughly. I don't understand why Carter keeps that moron around." When the girl appeared, the company's leader was delighted. He stepped out from behind his desk and took a few steps towards the visitor. "Alice Jackson. I apologize for making you wait. I needed to urgently resolve an important issue with Leonard Brooks." "No problem. Here are the 2 projects. You asked me to finish them quickly." The girl placed the hefty folder on the table, and the boss was surprised. "You worked so quickly? Well done." He sat down at the desk and attentively studied the documents. Alice stood by, and the boss blushed and apologized. "Alice Jackson. Have a seat. I apologize. I was so happy that I completely forgot about proper etiquette." The girl settled closer to the boss's desk. "There's a complete layout and analysis." "Yes, thank you. I can see that." Mr. Lewis continued studying the documents for another 5 minutes while Alice admired his Greek profile. This man was the embodiment of her dreams, a prince charming on a white horse. When she first saw him at the factory producing baby food, she felt like her dreams had come true. She couldn't move and literally devoured the young businessman with her eyes. That was the beginning of her little happiness. However, one circumstance prevented it from becoming something more significant. His daughter. Alice. The boss snapped his fingers in front of her eyes several times, and when she came to, he whispered, "Where did you run off to without leaving this room? We're alone now, and you can drop unnecessary formalities in our conversation." He looked at her, and sparks danced in his eyes. "You know, I also want to shed all these formalities. Sometimes, it feels like wearing armor that hinders breathing and movement. I really want to get rid of this protection." Alice listened to her idol and remained silent. Being next to the person she loved wholeheartedly was the greatest reward. Carter Lewis perfectly understood what was happening in the girl's soul, but he enjoyed playing the role of an idol. He left his executive chair and approached the chair where the girl was sitting. He leaned in and kissed her. Then, in the same mesmerizing voice, he whispered in her ear, "I have a surprise prepared for you. I'll be waiting for you in the car. So, don't linger." A pleasant wave of tenderness washed over the girl. Carter Lewis kissed her again and said in the same enchanting tone, If you knew, Alice, how much I want to hug you right now. To breathe in the intoxicating scent of your hair. But let's not give fodder to the gossip. There are eyes and ears everywhere. For some reason, the girl nodded, expressing her agreement with this gesture. Then, with a voice trembling with excitement, she asked, "Can I go?" Mr. Lewis resumed his role as the boss. "Yes, but wait. Alice Jackson, a brilliant idea just came to my mind. You already made a great debut in one of our projects. How do you feel about continuing this positive experience? I think becoming the face of E Delicious and Bright is an honor and a lucrative opportunity." This offer was unexpected, and the girl was at a loss. "Carter. I don't think I'm suitable for such a responsible role. During the project development, Julie Morgan and I thought that a young mother with a baby in her arms would represent the new line of baby food. I think finding such a character won't be difficult. We can even hold auditions. But I'm sure you, Alice, will do an excellent job with this task. Finding a suitable baby for the advertisement is a trivial matter. Let's stick to this option. I'm confident in its success. My intuition has never let me down." The rest of the workday, Alice spent in anxious anticipation of something inevitable. The boss's offer surprised and pleased her, but Mrs. King's morning call was the proverbial fly in the ointment, poisoning her life. Alice had learned to distinguish between good and bad at an early age. She feared sitting in the dark storage room, as that's how her mother punished her for the slightest disobedience. Even after the mysterious death of her husband, Vanessa didn't burden herself with caring for the children too much, despite having 6 of them. Alice and her twin brothers, Keaton and Leroy, were born in the early years of Vanessa and Wilmoth's marriage. It was a short period of little happiness when the young couple didn't pay much attention to the lack of money and household inconveniences. Vanessa worked as a pharmacy assistant, and the head of the family, Wilmoth Jackson, was an ambulance driver. By the standards of that time, they were an average family. The young spouses tried to provide the children with everything they needed despite their modest salaries, but it became increasingly difficult to make ends meet every day. Wilmoth decided to look for additional income, based on an unspoken agreement that existed since the early days of their marriage. He decided to inform his wife about his decision. "Vanessa. We won't be able to hold on like this for much longer. Soon, we'll have to leave with our bags on our backs. So, I decided to do something to bring in some extra money." The young woman was very afraid that her husband would get involved in something criminal and asked him not to take risks. "Wilmoth. Many families live like this. You know that you can't earn all the money in the world. Those are excuses for losers, and I don't consider myself one of them. I didn't want to tell you earlier, but I've been offered a rather clean job." Vanessa looked at her husband apprehensively. "Wilmoth. It's better not to. I've heard about such things. God forbid you get in over your head. Many ambitious people end up behind bars. Let's wait a little longer. I'll be out of maternity leave soon, and our family budget will even out." The man interrupted his wife with irritation. "Vanessa. Stop comforting yourself. Your little savings won't make any difference. Soon, the boys will go to kindergarten, and Alice will start school. It's about time we move out of this shabby place." Wilmoth Jackson often complained about the living conditions, but there was no one to expect help from for the young family. Because Wilmoth himself was raised by a single mother, and Vanessa's father was disabled. She also had to support her parents. The young woman often got lost in her dreams. "Wilmoth. Just imagine if we accidentally found a treasure or a pile of money. We could immediately buy an apartment, a car, and branded clothes." The man ruthlessly interrupted his wife's flight of fancy. "Dear Vanessa. If we found the mentioned treasures, we would be obligated to report it to the authorities by law. Concealing such discoveries is strictly punishable by law." Vanessa laughed. "You don't even let me dream. According to you, we can't live without looking back." This is how the young parents argued, but nothing changed in the family's life for years. When Alice was 5 years old, everything suddenly took a downward turn. It all started on a winter evening when her dad came home looking gloomy and bitter. "We at work. It's like... How do I tell you?" Optimistically, Vanessa Jackson remarked, "Don't worry. The layoffs won't affect you. After all, you have 3 underage children to support." For the first time in their years of marriage, the man raised his voice at his wife. "Vanessa, I'm amazed at your stupidity. You blindly believe in some unbelievable things that have no place in real life. Here, take a look." Wilmuth Jackson threw a piece of paper at his wife's face. The woman stammered, asking, "What is this?" "This, Vanessa, is a notice that they won't renew my contract anymore. They decided to downsize me. I've worked on the ambulance for 12 years, saving people's lives, and now I'm no longer needed." For the first time in her short life, Alice understood that something terrible had happened. Her dad sat in the kitchen and cried. She wanted to comfort him, but she was too scared to approach. So, she stood next to her father, not knowing how to help. Wilmuth Jackson stayed at home for a month. He changed for the worse during that time, becoming irritable and constantly shouting at the children. Thus, Alice and her twin brothers became afraid of him, but worse was yet to come for the family. The father started leaving early in the morning and returning home drunk in the evening. Alice heard her mother scolding him in the kitchen. "Wilmuth, what are you doing? The children are watching you. Let them watch. Let them get used to this dog's life from childhood. If you're born poor, you'll die scavenging. Don't argue, Vanessa. I earned a little something." The oldest daughter didn't know how her father earned money, but he brought a bit to her mother every evening, and later, alcohol started appearing in the house. When she saw the bottles on the table for the first time, the woman screamed. "Wilmuth, have you gone mad? I won't drink this." The man slammed his fist on the table and yelled, "You're my wife. A wife should do what her husband commands." She said she wouldn't, but he insisted. The woman hesitated, wanting to pour the contents of the bottles down the drain, but her husband didn't allow her to do so. "You can't treat a precious product like that. Vanessa, please keep me company, I don't feel like drinking alone. It's a bad omen." The kitchen door was slightly ajar, and Alice observed from the gap how her mother, looking disgusted, drank the red liquid. The little girl then thought that the product probably wasn't tasty since her mother didn't like drinking it. But a minute later, Vanessa Jackson seemed to become cheerier and asked for more wine. Soon, the nightly gatherings in the kitchen became a regular pastime for the couple. Wilmuth Jackson no longer made plans for the future. He forgot about his intention to find steady employment. They both got drunk to unconsciousness and went to sleep. In the morning, the mother woke up angry and shouted at the children, getting them ready for the daycare. "Move, you lazy lot. Just what I needed, to be late for work because of you." The little ones struggled with their clothes, and all the scolding fell on Alice. "Daughter, what are you standing there for? Help your brothers." One day, the terrible day arrived when Vanessa Jackson couldn't get out of bed. Well, she tried, but immediately fell back onto the pillows. "Daughter, your mother feels unwell. Very unwell. Take the children to the daycare." Alice wanted to remind her mother about going to work. "Mom, don't you have to go to work? Daughter, you run to the pharmacy. Tell them that your mom is sick." "Mom, I have to go to the daycare too." The woman waved her hand indifferently. "Yes, I forgot. I'll ask your dad when he comes back from work." Vanessa Jackson was forgiven for the first absence. To make her realize her mistake and put her on the path of correction, they transferred her to a janitorial position for 2 months. However, the demotion upset her. During an evening gathering, she expressed her feelings to her husband. "Yes, to hell with all of them. They wanted to punish me. I'm a proud woman." Vanessa Jackson proved her pride with another absence, and she was simply fired from her job. But, as they say, trouble doesn't come alone. One evening, Wilmuth Jackson didn't return home, but what saddened Vanessa the most was not his disappearance, but the inability to buy alcohol. Instead of trying to find her husband or a close person, she set out in search of alcoholic drinks. She returned home in the early morning with two unfamiliar women. These women were poorly dressed, and they had a strong smell about them, but Vanessa Jackson didn't pay attention to such details. "Ladies, make yourselves comfortable. Feel at home. My husband disappeared somewhere. So, we'll party to the max, pour us drinks." The guests made a lot of noise, and the party continued until lunchtime. Unaccustomed to such long gatherings, the little girl fell asleep and forgot to take the toddlers to daycare. The guests didn't leave their home for 3 days. One of the women, named Kristen, went to the store several times for more alcohol. Vanessa Jackson forgot not only about her suddenly missing husband but also about the need to feed the children. Alice comforted her little brothers as they cried. "Hold on a little. We'll go to daycare in the morning and you'll get something to eat there." That night, they slept hungry for the first time. In the morning, the girl hurriedly gathered her brothers for daycare, but the headmistress wouldn't let them in. "Where are your parents? You haven't attended this daycare for almost a week, so we can't accept you without proper documentation. Bring the necessary papers, and then we'll talk." Alice understood perfectly well that without her mother, she wouldn't be able to get the required documents from the clinic. She and her brothers went home, hoping that their mother had come to her senses. But at the doorstep, they were met with their mother's screams. "Wilmuth, why didn't you listen to me? I asked you. I begged you not to do this." In addition to Alice's mother, there were those two women who had been drinking with her for 3 days in the apartment. Apart from them, both grandmothers and a grandfather were present. The little girl understood that something terrible had happened in their family. Her grandmother Lily, Vanessa Jackson's mother, whispered to her, "That's it, my girl. You no longer have a father." "Granny. Did he go away?" "No, my dear. He's gone forever." Only later, when Alice grew up, her grandmother told her that they found Wilmuth Jackson's body in the woods. His body was mutilated, indicating that he had been severely beaten before his death. However, no one wanted to investigate the case. A police officer told the family, "Your Wilmuth is to blame himself. He led an antisocial lifestyle. That's what he got." The two families barely managed to collect enough money for a modest funeral for the man. Their neighbors provided tremendous support during this difficult time. After her husband's death, Vanessa Jackson briefly gave up alcohol and even found a job. She tried to apply for child support due to the loss of the breadwinner, but she was denied. "Your husband died due to a fight while drunk. Therefore, there are no grounds for granting benefits." Under the weight of life's hardships, the woman was completely broken. She started drinking again and was eventually deprived of her parental rights. Granny Lily took Alice in, and the twins were sent to an orphanage. Because the twins' mother was severely ill and couldn't take care of both grandchildren alone, Alice had a hard time getting used to not taking care of her younger brothers anymore. But life with her grandparents was peaceful. In the autumn, the girl started school, made friends, but this period of prosperity was short-lived. One day, Alice overheard her grandpa Kirby telling her grandmother, "Lily, we need to take Alice away from here. I've already thought about it. My mind is set. Vanessa started drinking again, and we can't save her." Lily Price interrupted her husband. "I can't believe it. Did you hear that Vanessa got together with Michael Cox and is even pregnant with his child? Oh, dear. He's a criminal. He's been to jail 3 times already." "Yes. And our troubled daughter doesn't care anymore. Alcohol has completely fried her brain. You know, we really need to leave here. It's a shame we can't take the twins with us. With their living mother, the kids are considered orphans." The conversation ended with the grandmother's tears. But soon, they did sell the apartment and moved to another provincial town where Grandpa Kirby had relatives. There, Alice finished school and then immediately enrolled in a college of arts in the interior design department. This happy moment in the girl's life coincided with a terrible loss. Suddenly, Grandpa passed away. Grandma took this blow from fate very hard and often said to her granddaughter, "Alice, I live only for you. Try hard. Study. Succeed in life. Maybe one day you'll remember your grandma with kind words." Alice tried her best to make her grandmother happy, as she was her only close family member. However, as often happens in the lives of young girls, she fell in love with a skilled craftsman. Mr. Wood was almost twice her age and was also taken by the pretty young girl. However, their romance was short-lived because the craftsman's wife found out about her husband's escapades and quickly identified his young lover. The woman didn't delay confronting Alice and publicly accused her. "Listen, you sheep. I warn you for the first and last time. Leave my husband alone. Otherwise, I'll make sure you gain a reputation as a fickle girl who won't find a job anywhere." Alice wanted to explain to Mr. Wood's wife that she was not to blame. But she knew that her justification would be worthless in this situation. In a provincial town, news spread at lightning speed, and by the evening, all the neighbors knew about the affair between Lily Price's granddaughter and the teacher. Grandma started drinking her heart medicine again, but she didn't scold Alice. She only gently reproached her. "Why do you need a married man? Aren't there enough young guys around?" Alice couldn't answer the last question. Not to her grandma, nor to herself. She was always drawn to adults rather than her peers. Soon, the girl received her diploma. Around the same time, she found out that she was pregnant. Alice was afraid to confess to her grandmother that she was soon going to be a mother. As she had no other place to go, she decided to return to her mother. Without saying a word to Lily Price, she got on a bus and went to her childhood city. However, the scene that presented itself to her was shocking. The apartment where she spent her early years resembled a shed. Chaos and ruin were everywhere. And Vanessa Jackson looked like a 70-year-old woman. She rushed to embrace her daughter and smiled with her toothless mouth. "My darling daughter. How good it is that you've returned. Otherwise, your mother is very ill and there's no money for medicine." Her mother reeked of alcohol, and the girl understood what medicine she was talking about. Without saying anything, Alice left the house, but only on the street did she notice 3 children of different ages running after her. The oldest boy asked, "Sister, why are you leaving? Stay." She turned in horror and looked at the children. "I don't know you at all. Maybe one day, I'll come back to you, but right now, I can't stay." She felt no emotions for these unfortunate children. Therefore, she didn't feel responsible for their fate. In horror, Alice ran away from the shed, and as she did, she mentally repeated, "I'll never come back here. My foot will never set foot here again." She hoped that her mother had changed. Well, could she even be called a mother? Since her escape didn't work, she had to return to her grandmother. However, Lily Price wasn't surprised by her granddaughter's 2-day absence. She calmly asked, "Did you go to your mother?" Remembering the recent visit, the girl shuddered. "Yes, I did." "And how is Vanessa?" "Awful. Grandma, if you could only see all that horror. Mom has changed so much. I didn't even recognize her at first. There are 3 children. They are very young." Lily Price let out a heavy sigh. "I know. Vanessa has sunk so low. There's nowhere lower to go. She probably doesn't even know who fathered those poor children." Grandmother looked straight into Alice's eyes. The piercing gaze was etched in the girl's memory for a long time, as were the words that followed after a minute of silence. "Alice. I'm very worried about you. I beg you not to do anything foolish." "Grandmother. What do you mean?" Alice tried to feign surprise, but she didn't do it well. The grandmother simply shook her head. "I know you. And I know you'll have a child from that master of yours. That's why I'm warning you not to make any foolish mistakes. Alice burst into tears on her grandmother's shoulder. I don't want this child. I'll give it up. Lily Price shook the girl's shoulders with all her strength. Don't you dare even think about it. Think about your siblings. Think about those unfortunate little ones you saw yesterday. As long as I'm alive, I'll help you. Alice managed to work a few months in a souvenir factory before her maternity leave. Within the given time, she gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and her grandmother immediately took on all the responsibilities of raising the little one. Her assistance was so significant that after a few months, Alice could return to work. She felt that her life was getting better, but a new tragedy knocked on their door. Suddenly, her grandmother passed away. Alice was at work when Lily Price had a seizure. She probably wanted to call for an ambulance or call her, but she couldn't make it. She died with a mobile phone in her hand. 1.5-year-old Zoe was playing in the playpen, unaware that she had lost her main protector. After her grandmother's funeral, Alice decided to leave this cursed place forever. She waited for the required 6 months and without any regret, sold the old couple's apartment, planning to find happiness in the regional center. Finding work there seemed impossible, but Alice managed to get a job at a baby food factory. The only problem was little Zoe, but she resolved it successfully. When she saw Mrs. King's ad at the bus stop, everything fell into place. The elderly woman hesitated when she saw Zoe. My goodness. She's still so little. She needs constant attention. I can watch her during the day, but not around the clock. God forbid anything happens to the baby. Alice pleaded with the nanny. Nothing will happen. Zoe is a very strong girl. Besides, I'll always be in touch with you, and I'll pay you well. You won't have to look after my daughter for long. As soon as I find a good job, I'll enroll Zoe in daycare. It's unclear what broke the nanny's resistance. Either the young mother's pleading or the significant advance. Most likely, the latter argument was more effective. After counting the money, the woman said with meaning. All right, let's try it. Perhaps, in the near future, Alice's own plan would have come true if she hadn't met the young businessman, Mr. Lewis. This meeting determined the fate of the girl and her little daughter. The car sped along the perfectly smooth surface of the new highway. Alice closed her eyes, enjoying the light autumn breeze that rushed into the car through the partially open window. Morning anxieties faded into the background, and her main problem no longer seemed so insurmountable. Carter glanced at her occasionally but didn't say anything. Just his presence alone reassured the girl. From the first day fate brought them together, Alice knew that this was the kind of life companion every woman dreams of. With Carter, she felt light and protected, and that feeling was much more valuable than the most expensive gifts he showered on her as a young businessman. Carter Lewis cast another fleeting glance at his companion. My dreamer. Aren't you tired? Watch out, you don't catch a draft. Maybe it's better to close the window? The autumn warmth can be deceiving. Don't be lured by such weather. It's already November, and before you know it, your neck will start to ache. The girl reluctantly shook off her pleasant relaxation. Thank you for your care, my dear. It's so touching. All right. I'll accept your compliment. And why don't you ask? Where am I taking you? Thin eyebrows on her lovely face arched in a curve. Why ask unnecessary questions? I like surprises. From such surprises, I always feel a burst of positive emotions. The man playfully remarked, what if I take you to the forest and leave you there to be eaten by wolves? Carter. You'd never do that. Are you so sure of me? Absolutely. Thank you for being honest. To be honest, I didn't expect you to consider me so kind. After all, many call me a villain. If you mean Mr. Brooks, you can stop worrying. Leonard Brooks has turned everything upside down in his mind, and he has a motive to consider you a demon from hell. This time, Carter lingered his gaze on the girl a bit longer. Alice, you're mistaken. Leonard and I have been friends for a long time, and believe me, he's a devoted comrade and a good specialist. I notice that there's tension between you two, but it's a misunderstanding. I'm sure he has no plans against me." With this statement, the man made it clear that he no longer intended to discuss his companion. Alice felt a bit offended but didn't show it. She closed her eyes again and leaned her head back on the seat. Mr. Lewis tried to apologize, but it came out awkwardly. "Alice. Don't be upset. I just can't stand gossip and rumors. I don't want you to be like those gossips spreading false information." She didn't move. "All right. I won't mention the sacred personality of Mr. Brooks again." The rest of the way passed in complete silence. Alice even managed to doze off and jolted awake when Carter loudly announced, "We've arrived." The girl stared out of the window, trying to figure out where they were. "Carter. Did you really decide to take me into the forest? What is this place?" "It's my surprise. Come on, get out of the car. Let's take a little walk in the fresh air. It's just about 200 meters away. The road is bad, so we'll continue on foot, otherwise, we might get stuck with the car." Alice reluctantly left the warm car. Equally unenthusiastically, she looked around. Such a desolate place. Carter was disappointed. "You're wrong. It's a wonderful place, in my opinion. By the way, some of the most famous figures in the business world bought land here. You'll see for yourself how cool it is." They walked only about 50 meters, and the landscape changed dramatically. The forest opened up, revealing a panorama of a developing village. Some cottages were already fully finished, while construction of other buildings was in the final stages. The girl was amazed by the luxury of the elite buildings. "Wow. You really surprised me. This city hidden in the woods is like a fairy tale. And all its inhabitants are real wizards." Mr. Lewis laughed. "It's almost true, except for one thing. The residents of this village aren't wizards freely wielding magic wands, they are ordinary businessmen. I don't think owners of a small shop or a shoe repair workshop can afford to live in this place." "You've noticed it correctly. Not everyone can afford this luxury, but I can. Get ready for the main surprise. We're almost there. Take a deep breath of fresh air." The man quickened his pace and turned into an alley between two plots. Here we are. A few dozen meters away, a 3-story building gleamed, surrounded by workers in helmets. Alice sighed with admiration. "What a beautiful house. It's just very big." The man embraced her and kissed her on the lips. "A big house is better than a small one. I want you to be the mistress of this estate." Carter spread his arms wide as if trying to embrace the picturesque surroundings. "Alice. Since childhood, I dreamed of having a large family, but my parents were always busy. They believed that even having one child in the family was an unaffordable luxury, but I wanted to have a brother or sister so much. In short, my childhood dream remained unfulfilled, and now I intend to make up for it on my own. I hope you don't mind taking an active part in this process?" The girl was speechless from the unexpectedness of the situation. Her heart was pounding with happiness, and she could only whisper quietly, "Carter. You've completely overwhelmed me." The man couldn't hide his joy. "Did you like it? Be honest. You didn't expect me to propose in such an original way?" "No. I didn't expect it." Carter led her towards the house. The interior finishing is already in full swing. "Maybe we'll have a housewarming party by Christmas. Well, at worst, we'll move here in the spring." "Carter, this place is so far from the city. How will we get to work?" "Alice. There's no need to look for problems where there are none. It's only a 40-minute drive by car. You do have a driver's license, don't you? If I'm not mistaken." "Yes. Well, I have little practice. I mean, almost none. It's easy to catch up. Besides, you can work remotely. Many people do that nowadays. They sit at home and develop new ideas. In our case, you won't even have to strain your brain if your face, Alice, becomes the brand of our company. They pay well for advertisements these days. You can amass a fortune. Alice stood in the middle of the vast hall, unable to collect her thoughts. Mr. Lewis, like a little boy, picked her up and started spinning. We'll be happy in this house. We'll have a bunch of children, and when I come home from work angry and tired, they'll jump on my lap. The girl inadvertently imagined this idealistic picture, but her memory unexpectedly presented a completely different scene. It was the time when her drunken father returned home, and she and her brothers hid in a dark storeroom to avoid being seen by him. For over an hour, they carefully inspected the house. Carter Lewis showed his future wife the project of a country estate. Here, right in the center, we'll have a pool. It'll be an outdoor pool in summer, and in winter, a special dome will cover the entire structure. That way, we can enjoy swimming all year round. He pointed at the plan with his finger. According to the project, there will be a winged passage with a winter garden leading to the pool. And here, on the lawn, we'll have picnics. Alice tried to listen attentively to the businessman, but her thoughts were drifting far away. They were in another village nearby, where Mrs. King lived in a small but cozy house on the First Western Street. That house held the main obstacle to the grand plans Carter was so excitedly talking about. The man noticed the absent look in the girl's eyes. Alice. Where are you flying off to again? She shook off her stupor and smiled. I'm listening to you. All of this is so fantastic for a simple girl like me. That's exactly what I wanted, someone simple and down to earth. I won't hide it. I had relationships with girls from high society, but they were boring, and I don't want to tie my fate to such ladies. During the entire ride back, Alice thought hard. Her inner voice told her it was time to make important decisions. Alice. You can't delay this any longer. After all, you don't want to miss such a great opportunity, right? Soon, you'll become Mrs. Lewis, and your life will completely change. But that won't happen if Carter finds out about Zoe's existence. She engaged in an internal dialogue with this voice. What should I do then? The invisible interlocutor replied concisely. Nothing complicated. Get rid of the girl. After all, no one knows about her existence. You haven't even told Julia, your close friend, that you have an illegitimate child. Get rid of her. Well, how? I can't take away her life. That's not necessary at all. There are plenty of safe options for both you and Zoe. Think carefully, and you'll be surprised at how quickly and painlessly you can resolve this issue. During this night, Alice couldn't fall asleep. She tossed from side to side, going to the balcony 5 times to get some fresh air, but it didn't help relieve her intense nervous tension. Only towards dawn did she finally fall asleep, and she dreamt of Grandma Lily. She was crying and pleading. Alice. Come to your senses. Don't do it. The Lord won't forgive you such a grave sin. The awakening was difficult, but the young woman shook off the remnants of the unpleasant dream and tried to focus on thoughts of her happy future. Of course, in that new life, there was no place for little Zoe, but Alice was no longer concerned about the girl's fate. Life in the big metropolis followed its long-established routine. From early morning, traffic jams formed on the roads, and Alice regretted leaving so early. She had warned Mrs. King in advance, and she asked her to hurry. I'm feeling very unwell. And since yesterday, Zoe has been coughing. We should take her to the doctor. Of course. We'll go straight from your place to the polyclinic. Alice made this promise with a clear conscience, although she knew it would not be fulfilled. She managed to leave the city center with difficulty, but for some reason, she stopped at a shopping center. She quickly went through the departments and bought a set of curtains for the living room. If Carter asked, she could show him the purchase as proof. The toy department also didn't escape her attention. For about 10 minutes, she wandered between rows of toy cars and funny animals until the saleswoman noticed her. May I help you? Alice was pleased. Yes, I need to choose something fun for my daughter as a gift. How old is your little one? She'll be 3 soon. In 2 months. I think your daughter will like this cute bunny. The woman handed her a plush toy. The bunny had unnaturally large ears and lavender fur, a deviation from the laws of nature. However, this incongruity brought a smile to Alice's face. Such a cutie couldn't not be liked. My daughter just adores all kinds of little animals. Alice had no idea about her daughter's preferences, but she lied without hesitation. Perhaps from the outside, it looked strange, as the young saleswoman eyed her suspiciously. To avoid unnecessary attention, Alice hurried to the cashier. Inside the car, strong excitement overwhelmed her, and she had to make an unplanned stop. Alice tried to calm herself down. Why are you panicking? No one will report the child missing. Zoe is not registered anywhere in this city. No one will be looking for her. Everything is coming together surprisingly well, and there's no need to worry. Yesterday, before going to bed, Alice chose a location on the map where she planned to leave the girl. The information about this village with an unmemorable name was scarce. But most importantly, it was a completely abandoned village. The nearest settlement was 6 kilometers away. Mrs. King welcomed Alice on the porch of her house. She looked dissatisfied and said, "Why did you take so long? You promised to come earlier, and it's almost 10 o'clock now. Today, I won't be able to make it to the therapist." Alice wanted to explain the reason for the delay, but the woman turned her back and half opened the door. "Zoe. Come here, sweetheart. Mommy came for you." The little girl was wearing a light jacket and sneakers. Mrs. King glanced at her charge. "Of course, the girl is not quite dressed for the season, but it's not my concern anymore. Buy her something suitable. I'll bring out the rest of her things now." The elderly woman disappeared into the doorway and then reappeared with 2 full bags. "Everything is intact. You can check." Mrs. King said it provocatively, but Alice couldn't understand the reason for such animosity. She asked the nanny. "Mrs. King, if I've offended you in any way, please tell me. I don't want you to have any negative impression of me." The woman didn't hesitate long with her reply. "What impression can I have? If you abandon the girl and don't show your face. You're her mother, after all. Aren't you interested in how your daughter is growing up? What words she can say?" Alice didn't know how to respond. She mumbled almost inaudibly. "I'm very busy at work. I don't have a free minute." "Then why did you decide to have children? You should think with your head, not your lower parts." The girl started whimpering, and Mrs. King pulled her close. "Come, my dear, to your mommy. See, she brought you a Pokemon." The nanny pointed to the toy, but Alice corrected her. "It's a bunny." "Oh well, I don't care if it's a bunny or a Pokemon. Have a safe trip." Mrs. King turned away abruptly and disappeared into the house. Alice handed the toy to the girl, who immediately hugged the bunny to her chest. "Zoe. Shall we go for a ride in the car?" The girl nodded her head and extended her hand to her mother. When they approached the car, Alice realized that she had overlooked some details. "How could I forget about the child's seat? Well, we'll figure something out." On the back seat, she placed the bags with the clothes and seated the child between them. The girl remained calm throughout the journey and didn't say a word. Her behavior made the woman anxious. "Can you even talk?" The girl smiled and nodded her head. "Yes. Good job. Then tell me, what's your name?" "Ola." Alice burst out laughing. "That's the wrong answer. Your name is Zoe." "Zoe. But now it doesn't matter anymore." Towards the end of the journey, the weather worsened. It started with freezing rain, and then it turned into snowfall. Alice had little driving experience, and she was afraid she wouldn't be able to handle the slippery roads. To encourage herself, she said out loud, "We'll have to drive at a minimum speed." Unexpectedly, the little girl burst into tears, and the young mother didn't immediately realize that she was simply hungry. They had to make a stop at a roadside cafe to feed the child. After lunch, Alice started calling Julia. "Hey, where have you disappeared to?" Alice cheerfully explained. "I have a day off today. So, I decided to treat myself to some shopping." Julia grumbled. "You could have let me know. I've been bored here all alone. By the way, Leonard came looking for you. He asked about you. I told him that the boss gave you the day off. He was pretty upset. Let him be furious with anger. I don't care. Anyway, Julia, I don't have much time." Alice hung up her phone and watched her daughter eat. From Zoe's characteristic fidgeting on the chair, the mother understood that the girl needed to use the bathroom. She asked, "My darling, do you need to go to the bathroom?" The little girl confirmed her desire without words. Alice took her daughter to the restroom and thought that she was tired of all this fuss. "I should have planned everything better. Now I have to reveal myself in public places again. But well, hardly anyone will be interested in me." They reached their final destination in the evening. Snow was falling heavily, and Alice most wanted to finish her operation quickly. She left the little girl in the car and went to gather information. A few minutes later, she returned. "Come with me." The little girl spoke very clearly for the first time that day. "Where to?" Alice was surprised but quickly regained her composure. "We'll go to a little house, and we'll take the bunny with us." "Are we going to live there?" "Yes, you'll wait here for a little while and I'll run to the store. We have nothing to eat. It's nearby. You won't cry, will you?" "No." "And will Mrs. King come?" "Yes, I'll call her." Alice dragged the girl towards an empty house, constantly lying to her. Above all, at this desperate moment, she was afraid not of the child's tears, but of changing her mind at the last moment. Twilight had already set in, and it was impossible to see the interior of the abandoned house clearly. Alice noticed a switch on the wall and flicked it, but the light didn't come on. The house only had a wardrobe and an old bed as furniture. Alice sat her daughter on the bed. "Stay here and don't go anywhere. Okay?" She didn't wait for the girl's answer and rushed outside. Alice ran to her car, stumbling and falling. Despite the piercing wind, her face and body were burning with heat. She was afraid to look back, afraid of what she had left behind, her own child. She got into the car but didn't allow herself a moment of respite, forgetting about caution. Alice drove the car at top speed. Only just before reaching the city, she came to her senses and started whispering to calm herself. "It's all right, Alice. Now nothing is holding you back from starting your life anew. And children? You'll give Mr. Lewis lots of little ones. You'll help fulfill his cherished dream. After all, for the sake of becoming his wife, it was worth making some sacrifices." Alice entered her apartment, which Carter Lewis had paid for, closer to midnight. She didn't want to eat or drink anything and went straight to the bathroom. For over half an hour, she stood under the shower, as if trying to wash away some invisible dirt. She lay under the blanket, hoping to get some rest. But, just like the previous night, sleep eluded her. The pale face of the little girl she heartlessly abandoned in an empty house stood before her eyes. Jumping out of bed, Alice rushed to the hallway. "I'll go there right now and get Zoe back. I can't live with this." But her inner voice immediately reminded her of its existence. "You're not going anywhere. Your own well-being is more important to you than this girl's life." Tears streamed from her eyes, and she no longer held back her sobs. Alice blamed fate and her mother, who couldn't handle life's challenges. She remembered Lily, her grandmother, who, for some reason, was also to blame for her failures. She desperately appealed to her deceased relative. "If it weren't for you, Grandma, stopping me, I would have gotten rid of the pregnancy in time and nothing would have happened. But now, I feel like a criminal." Exhausted from tears, Alice took 2 sleeping pills and fell into a restless sleep. Again, in her dreams, she saw her grandmother, who spoke to her. "You're no better than your mother. Even worse. Vanessa didn't kick you out of the house. She didn't abandon you to fate. The heavenly court awaits you. Such actions are not forgiven. Wind blew through the train carriage, leaving passengers unsure how to stay warm. Some took out spare clothes from their bags, while others resorted to a proven remedy, consuming a 40-degree drink. Neville Green didn't belong to either category of travelers. To keep warm, he was flexing his fingers and tapping one foot against the other. However, this active passenger's movements didn't sit well with the company seated nearby. "Hey, man. Stop stomping your feet." Neville Green turned. A young guy, emanating the fresh aroma of alcohol, looked at him disdainfully. The young rascal decided to express his dissatisfaction again. "Hey, man. Why are you staring at me? I'm not wearing any flowers." Neville Green decided to retaliate. "Oh, you rude little runt." His fellow carousers eagerly awaited the man's response. "Oscar. How did that old man put you in your place so quickly?" But the guy wasn't giving up.
"Yeah,
"I'll crush him now." "No, Oscar. Better not mess with him. Once, I tried to mess with an old man like that, and he turned out to be a retired soldier. He beat me thoroughly. So now, I try to avoid such old men. It's better for my nerves and my well-being." But the warning only incited Oscar, and he intentionally bumped Neville Green with his hand. The man pretended not to notice the provocation. Oscar then became more aggressive and knocked the man's hat off. The action was met with approval. However, one of Oscar's friends mumbled quietly, "I don't envy Oscar. This old man can knock anyone out with a single punch. Look at his fists." The man walked to the vestibule, where his young opponent was waiting. He looked at the skinny guy and his ridiculous pants. "How are you going to fight? What if your pants rip?" Oscar was puzzled. He looked at his jeans, which tightly clung to his thighs, and at that moment, Neville Green grabbed the hood of his jacket, lifting him off the floor. "You have two choices, Oscar. Either I throw you out of the train right now, or you apologize to me in front of everyone." The boy squirmed intensely. "Come on, old man. You've gone mad? Let go of me. I won't do it anymore." Neville Green slammed the door shut, not releasing his prey, and walked back to the carriage. "Oscar. How does it feel? Did you almost wet yourself from fear? Maybe it's time to change your pants?" Neville Green shook the guy vigorously, and in a whisper, he reminded him. "I'm waiting for an apology. Speak louder." Oscar, under the mocking laughter of his accomplices, said loudly, "I'm sorry." Neville Green's victory earned him the group's respect. The man released the young guy and looked disapprovingly at the whole group. "Guys. So that life's demons don't ruin you, stop guzzling vodka. Believe me. Nothing good will come from this poison." Someone asked, "Has Grandpa tried it himself?" You guessed it right. Tried and tested on my own experience. Although, I didn't abuse it much. I always kept it in moderation, but I still had some troubles because of it. Neville Green wanted to add something more to his passionate speech, but at that moment, the loudspeaker crackled, and then a hoarse male baritone spoke. "Dear passengers. Those who have tickets to the Crossroads stop, get ready to disembark. We urge you not to leave your belongings in the train carriage." Neville Green took his suitcase and travel bag. "Hello, honest company." The young people burst into laughter, and only Oscar remained silent, but he glared at the man with undisguised anger. Crossroads was a small station in the middle of an open field. There was no platform here, so passengers had to jump onto the gravel embankment. The man struggled to perform this trick and barely managed to stay on his feet. "Neville. The years take their toll. You used to jump from heights and not even scratch yourself." The traveler looked around, hoping to find some misfortune companions, but besides him, no one else got off at this stop. The man said bitterly, "I'll have to walk through the field. I never thought I'd come back here." Oh, fate is a villain. He picked up his luggage and slowly walked along the road. The wind hit his face, and the freezing rain mixed with snow completed the unhappy picture of his return to his homeland. Neville Green tried not to pay attention to the bad weather. He thought about his hopeless situation and sometimes expressed his thoughts aloud. I am to blame myself for being left alone, unwanted. Now I have to reap the consequences of my actions. In the elderly man's voice, there was no despair or self-pity. He simply talked about his life as an accomplished fact. Once, long ago, he ran away from these places, vowing never to return. Young Neville longed for a beautiful and carefree life, while in the village, one had to work from dawn till dusk. His father, Mickey Green, was strict about this. If Neville took a break to catch his breath, his father was there immediately. What's wrong, son? Slacking off again? Who will work for you? If the young man didn't fulfill the assigned work given by the head of the family, he was not allowed to sit at the table. If this rule was broken, the father would yell at the mother. He doesn't deserve a meatless soup. Let him work until the end, then you can feed your favorite. Neville hoped that after his military service, his father's attitude towards him would change, but Mickey Green didn't give him a chance to recover. On the day after his return, his father woke him up at 5 o'clock in the morning. Get up, Neville. No time to laze around. The grass is full of sap. We need to mow. The young man jumped out of bed, cursing everything under the sun, but most often, he blamed his fate. Why was I destined to be born in such a remote place? People in the city live for their pleasure, while here, it's total darkness. Neville knew about the sweet life in the city firsthand. He was fortunate to serve in a military garrison not far from a large regional center. Since Neville was never caught breaking military discipline, he regularly received leave. It was during this time, still in his military years, that he decided he would one day move to the big city. However, for certain reasons, he couldn't tell his parents about his intentions. He had to wait for the right opportunity for almost half a year. Such an opportunity arose in the autumn after the harvest. At the farm where his father and brothers worked, there was an ironclad rule. Wages were paid only after all the fieldwork was completed. Of course, workers were advanced some money so they could buy everything they needed for daily living, but with that money, one couldn't really splurge. Neville had managed to establish contacts in the accounting department and knew exactly when the money would be brought. To prevent his plan from failing, he had packed everything he needed in a bag beforehand: socks, underwear, a toothbrush, and hidden it in the hayloft. On the day of the salary payment at the collective farm, it was considered a holiday of sorts. The guys would borrow credit from the storekeeper Margot and start celebrating from early morning. Neville never supported such initiatives, which caused dissatisfaction among the villagers. Neville, why do you refuse to drink vodka with us? Not very friendly of you. But by the age of 20, the young man had already formed his own philosophy of life, and the main conceptual basis was moving to the city. On that bright autumn day, when the whole village celebrated the end of field work, Senya, after receiving his wages, grabbed his bag of belongings and hurried to the small station where the train stopped twice a day. From that very moment, the countdown of his new life began. He didn't think about how his parents would run around the village in a panic, looking for their son. Because he didn't even leave a note. He wasn't concerned about how Olivia, the girl who had been waiting for him from the army for 2 years and hoped to become his lawful wife, would cope with his sudden departure. All of this seemed insignificant to Neville, something he could easily sacrifice for his ultimate goal. And for nearly 40 years, he pursued that guiding light, leaving behind close relatives and friends. Only now, when the years had silvered his hair, and his youthful enthusiasm had dwindled almost to nothing, did the man realize the emptiness of his existence? Yes. I lived like a vagabond. Chopping so much wood. It's a pity that nothing can be fixed now. With such gloomy thoughts, the man climbed a small elevation from where he could see their village. In his youth, he used to run up this hill with the other kids to fly kites. Back then, the village seemed like the center of the universe to them. Now, he couldn't see any lights down below. Just the black roofs of the small houses. A feeling of hopelessness overcame him, and he whispered quietly. How sad. The houses look like crosses on a graveyard. At that moment, it struck him that he hadn't even attended his father's funeral. His brothers didn't know his address, so they couldn't inform him of Mickey Green's death. After that, they immediately disowned Neville, and his older brother, Wilmuth, said that bad blood flowed through Neville's veins. After such statements, Neville harbored resentment towards his brothers as well. They don't want to associate with me. God will judge them. And I won't beg for their acceptance. I'm not used to humiliation. Later on, his mother informed him in a letter that Wilmuth had died of lung inflammation. The second brother, Patrick, had gone north to visit his son. Neville was the only one left to bury their mother, who had lived the longest in the village. After her death, the house remained empty for almost 9 years. In these years, Neville Green visited the place only once. Consequently, he had no idea about the condition of his inheritance. He approached the log building from the back and noticed with satisfaction. Nothing's been touched. Even the windows are intact. Perhaps, marauders don't know about this abandoned village, or they think someone still lives here. The man knocked on the logs and then on the windows, checking the integrity of the building's elements. He hadn't stepped away from the window when he heard sounds resembling mewing or a child's cry from inside the house. A sense of unease washed over him. What's going on? Am I hallucinating? He leaned closer to the window, but the dirty glass made it impossible to see anything. Then, holding a hefty club, Neville Green stealthily made his way to the entrance of the house. He lightly pressed his shoulder against the door, and it opened with ease. In an instant, a thought crossed his mind. So, someone did come here after all. I distinctly remember installing a lock. I even left the key under the mat. Perhaps a thief was lurking inside. An unpleasant chill ran down his spine, but it didn't stop him. Cautiously stepping forward, he reached the next door and forcefully opened it to startle the intruder. Come out into the light. Instead of a response, a desperate child's cry was heard. His eyes were adjusting to the darkness, and the man noticed a small, moving bundle on the floor. Apparently, the child had been crying for several hours as its chest now produced hoarse and spasmodic sobs. The man rushed to the baby. What is this? Where did you come from? He gently picked up the little one, and the thin cap fell off the child's head, revealing 2 russet pigtails. Oh. You're not a boy, but a girl. The man unbuttoned his jacket and brought the little body close to his chest to warm her. Oh dear. You're so cold. Who heartlessly left you here? The girl calmed down slightly. Apparently, the comforting warmth of a stranger's body had a beneficial effect on the nearly frozen child. She clung to him so tightly that he could hardly pry her away. Hold on, sweetheart. We'll find you a warm home, and then we'll heat up the stove, and it will be warm right away. Neville Green emptied the suitcase onto the bed and wrapped the little girl in his sweater. In the old cupboard, he found a woolen blanket. Though the item was considerably damaged by moths, it still retained some warmth. Soon, the girl calmed down, and her breathing became steady. The man tucked the edges of the blanket and observed the sleeping child for a moment. Well, many things have happened in my life. But finding an abandoned child is a first. This must be a sign from above. Since there was no electricity in the house, Neville had to act by touch. He bumped into corners, hit his head against the doorframe several times, but he paid no attention to these trivialities. After all, a little being had unexpectedly entered his life, and he was obligated to take care of her. Before long, the warm flames danced in the stove, and pleasant warmth spread throughout the house. Neville Green dozed off by the stove, sitting on a low bench his father had made long ago. Neville Green woke up when the gray dawn started to seep through the cloudy windows. He quickly roused himself. I didn't even notice falling asleep. And I forgot about the stove? I'll have to light it again. He opened the door of the stove and noted with satisfaction. The firewood hasn't burned out yet. I'll add some dry logs. It needs to be heated for a long time for it to become warm. The little house is almost frozen. He approached the bed, and two blue eyes stared at him. Trying not to startle the child, he asked kindly, "Why aren't you sleeping?" The girl remained silent. So, he asked another question that interested him. "Can you tell me your name?" The answer came immediately. "Ola." "I can't understand you," the man said. But the girl repeated, "Ola." "All right. Let's call you Ola then. And what do you want me to do with you? Where is your mother? How did you end up here?" Instead of answering, the girl handed him a toy animal of an unknown breed and strange color. Neville Green couldn't help but exclaim, "What an odd-looking thing. They make toys like these as if they want to scare children." He examined the plush rabbit and returned it to the girl. "Play with your toy for now. I'll figure out how to feed you. Yesterday, I brought some dry rations with me on the journey. There's still some left, but then I'll have to go on a hunt for food. There haven't been any shops in this village for a long time. There's nothing here." The girl eagerly devoured the sandwich while he watched her. "Poor thing. It seems like you were really hungry. I need to go to Alamo. I hope the shop hasn't closed yet." Neville Green looked out of the window to assess the situation outside. "Well, this is bad. There's so much snow overnight. I definitely won't be able to ride my bicycle. I'll have to walk on foot. But what should I do with you, Ola?" He looked at the girl, who still clutched her rabbit tightly. "Can you sit here alone for a while? I need to go to the store, and it's far away. So, I can't take you with me." Unexpectedly, the girl burst into tears. "Don't leave. I'm scared." The man was surprised. "Oh, so you can talk. All right, don't cry. We'll figure something out. I remember that there were some sleds lying around in the attic. My father made them himself. They might still be intact." The sleds were in good condition, but the girl's light clothing wouldn't allow her to embark on a long journey. Without much thought, Neville Green found a solution to the problem. "I'll wrap you up like a doll in the blanket. You won't freeze." More than 2 hours he trudged through the snowdrifts to the nearest settlement. The appearance of an unfamiliar stranger, especially with a child, caused quite a stir in the Alamo community, which had been starved for news. Before Neville Green could finish shopping at the store, a police officer arrived in an SUV. Roger Hayes scrutinized the stranger's face for a while before shouting, startling the shop assistant. "Neville Green, how did you end up in our parts?" Neville Green didn't recognize the police captain with the protruding belly right away. The man used to live nearby in their village. Noticing curious glances, he replied succinctly, "Well, old age caught up with me. I decided to come back. And, to be honest, I didn't recognize you, Roger. You've changed quite a bit." "Of course. Almost half a century has passed. I'm getting old, but I can't retire. There's no one to replace me. The younger generation doesn't want to come to this backwoods. Us old-timers have to keep serving." The policeman gestured toward the child. "And who's this child with you?" Green promptly responded. "She's my granddaughter. Quite young still. Why did you bring her to this uninhabited village in such bad weather?" "There's a reason, Roger. But it's not a story for outsiders." The experienced police officer caught the hint right away. "Listen, Green. If you don't mind, I'll come to your place in the evening. We can sit and talk. There's no one to talk to around here. Only old women left." Neville Green was pleased with the invitation. "Of course, come on in. I need to consult with you about something as well." Roger Hayes extended his right hand. "Well, it's settled then." Finally, the shop assistant, Margot, came to life. She frowned discontentedly and raised her thin eyebrows. "You're causing a ruckus here, Roger Hayes. You'll scare away all the customers." "Margot." Our people can only be scared by spoiled meatballs, everything else is a trifle. Neville Green stocked up on groceries and loaded everything onto the sled. Not forgetting to ask. So, Ola? Do the bags bother you? The little girl smiled, and dimples appeared on her cheeks. The man happily remarked. You're such a beauty. Shall we go home? The little girl playfully squinted her eyes and giggled. Let's go home. The journey back seemed not as long and monotonous. Upon arrival at his location, the man immediately started preparing the meal. He commented loudly on his actions, and the girl followed him, repeating his last words. They both found this game amusing. The girl was so engrossed that she forgot about her stuffed animal. Neville Green managed to make lunch. Now the soup needs to cool down a bit, and then we'll taste it. Are you very hungry, my dear? The girl was no longer afraid of him and babbled some stitches and tales to herself. In response to her savior's question, she provided a fairly complete answer. Yes. I love soup. Mrs. King always made it with chicken for me. And she gave me porridge because I can't eat omelets. The more Neville Green interacted with the little girl, the more he was amazed. It turns out you can talk. But where is your Mrs. King? The girl furrowed her brows and waved her hand vaguely. She stayed at home, and Auntie brought me in her car. She said she's my mom. The man remarked. What a mess. Do you know how old you are? The girl immediately showed 2 fingers and then, after some thought, released the third one. Neville Green exclaimed. What a puzzle. Where did she come from, and why did she end up in my house of all places? Just at that moment, a police officer arrived in his SUV. He walked straight into the house and noticed with pleasure. It's warm here. The compliment pleased the host. I've been heating it for almost a day. The house has been uninhabited, and everything here froze. Without waiting for an invitation, the guest sat at the table. He took out a few candies from his pocket and lured the girl toward him. This is for you, princess. A gift. The little girl took the candies and immediately started tasting them. As the policeman watched her, he began sharing his thoughts. You know, Green. I was driving here, and I kept thinking about life. It's strange. It scatters people all over the world and then brings them back together. Remember how our village used to be? How could I forget? And it's been such a short time from a historical perspective. But it's gone now. When I was coming here from the junction at night, I thought Miskit looked like a graveyard. Instead of tombstones, there are empty-eyed windows of houses. The policeman even hit the table with his palm, so much did he like the comparison of the newly arrived man. Yes, you're right. It breaks my heart every time I come here on duty. Sometimes, I feel like crying, but today, my mood is different. I was driving in my old jalopy, and I saw smoke rising from our village. What do you think, Green? Can our Miskit ever revive? Neville Green just shrugged his shoulders. How should I know? Will you have some tea? I won't say no. All my insides are frozen from being unaccustomed to warmth. And Green, tell me about your adventures. What brought you back to your homeland in your old age? Neville Green had long wanted to confide in someone and didn't need much persuading to share his story. Well, there's not much to tell, really. It's a typical situation. I ran away from the village in search of happiness, but I never found it in the big city. I got married officially 3 times, and the women I met seemed nice enough. But I always felt like something was missing, like that cat from the fairy tale. I left the first woman, leaving my son behind. The second marriage was the longest. I had a daughter and a son. Then, I wanted a young wife. I got married for the 3rd time, but it was another disappointment. I worked up north for a long time, had to pay alimony for 4 people before I could retire. And just before my well-deserved rest, I met a good woman. We didn't register our marriage. No need to involve people. Those 7 years turned out to be the happiest of my life. Roger Hayes listened, his mouth agape. Oh, you've had quite the ride. Did you run away from your last wife too? Neville Green's hands shook as he held the cup. My Rebecca passed away. I buried her this summer. And she wasn't even sick. She was such a cheerful woman. But suddenly, she complained about a stomach ache. I begged her to go to the hospital, but she refused. On the fourth day, she looked really bad, so I called an ambulance. They took her straight to the operating table. I never thought people could die from appendicitis. Hers burst, and the infection spread throughout her body. Roger Hayes put his cup aside. I'm sorry to hear that, Neville. Thank you, Roger. So, these are my pies. My Rebecca died, and I wasn't registered in her apartment. As soon as the ground cooled on her grave, her relatives came swooping down. The battle for the inheritance began, and I took my suitcases and went to the train station. The policeman was surprised. So, you didn't manage to acquire your own home in your whole life? Can you believe it? I didn't. I lived in houses owned by my wives. You see, Roger, when you're young, you don't think about old age. You think you'll be young and healthy forever. At least, that's what I thought. But when Rebecca was gone, I went to seek refuge with my children. I had always paid child support to all 4 of them and even provided extra for their education. I thought they would take their father in. I see. Nobody wanted you. That's why you came back here. Where else could I go? Luckily, this little hut survived. Honestly, I didn't expect it to. I thought they'd taken everything down to the last plank. Roger Hayes puffed out his chest proudly. Maybe so, but I control everything here. I practically patrol my area every day. I make sure everything is in order. By the way, you're not alone. Many heirs gather here in the summer to relax in the countryside. The host poured more hot tea for his guest, and he gladly took a sip. Nice tea, high quality. I buy a simpler kind to save money. Perhaps your payments are good? I can't complain. And I still have some savings left. Neville Green breathed a sigh of relief. Now I'll spend the rest of my life in my father's house. I'll keep bees and go fishing. The police officer interrupted the man's dreams. And what about the little girl? Green stared at him in surprise. What little girl? Oh, you mean Ola? I don't know where to turn for help. She's not my child, she was left here as an abandoned baby. I thought her mother would show up, but 2 days have passed, and no one came. Neville Green briefly told the police officer how he found an unknown child in his house. Roger Hayes was shocked by his story and promised to start searching for the girl's relatives right away. However, as is often the case in such situations, busy law enforcement officers tend to forget their promises. Although the policeman regularly visited them, the case didn't progress much. He even managed to take a photo of the girl, but various circumstances always got in the way. There were meetings at the district center or commissions from the region. Neville Green wasn't rushing his friend because he had become accustomed to the girl's presence in the house. Only as spring approached did he start to ponder the little girl's fate. She needs to go to kindergarten and then to school. But without documents, it won't be easy to arrange. The policeman once again promised to step up the search. Alice sat in front of the monitor, but her thoughts were far away. Carter checked on her several times. Alice. I'm ready. Without turning her head, she casually said, Darling, I won't go. Just half an hour ago, you were saying something completely different. The man was starting to lose his temper, but Alice didn't even flinch. I don't feel well, she said. Carter Lewis's patience snapped. Do you not realize that all your excuses are beyond acceptable? This is a significant event, and I'm obliged to attend with my wife. You're simply letting me down with your refusal. Reluctantly, she stood up and headed to the wardrobe. Fine. I'll get ready now. But please, don't yell at me. I'm not yelling. I'm just expressing my frustration with your behavior. I can't even remember the last time I saw a smile on your face. You're constantly dissatisfied with something. That might have been bearable, but you ruined the advertising campaign. You let the whole company down, and now losses are inevitable. He stopped her by the door and turned her face towards him roughly. Alice, explain to me what's happening with you? What's bothering you? Has someone hurt you? The situation was taking an undesirable turn for her. She forced a smile. No, Carter. It's not about you or anyone else. It's about me. He lowered his eyes and embraced his wife gently. Alice, you can't torment yourself like this. We will have children, a whole nursery full of them. Don't lose hope. We'll go to the best doctors together. She smiled again and assured her husband, all right, I'll try to believe in the good. He kissed her cheek tenderly. Wear that cherry dress I gave you for your birthday. You look stunning in it. Okay, dear. Alice disappeared into the wardrobe, trying to calm her trembling. For the past 2 months, something terrible had been happening to her. She increasingly found herself going back to the not-so-distant past, to that November evening. Leaving her little daughter in an abandoned house in a village, the name of which she had completely erased from her memory. She had thought that her life would follow a smooth path from then on. Indeed, the first year flew by unnoticed. Immediately after their lavish wedding, she and Carter went on a honeymoon trip to exotic places. For the provincial girl who was not spoiled by luxury, this honeymoon felt like true magic. She cherished every moment like a child. Carter Lewis experienced a similar feeling. He was madly in love with his young wife, capturing every one of her glances and sighs. But the honeymoon came to an end, and they returned home. Their massive house felt empty and unwelcoming without the laughter of children, and the newlyweds eagerly awaited the arrival of their firstborn. Alice became pregnant almost immediately, but on the 4th month, she suffered a miscarriage. The young woman took this tragedy very hard, but her caring husband was there to comfort her as best he could. Alice, don't despair. Unfortunately, these things happen to women. Perhaps you were overly stressed. If you stay home and rest, it might help. However, she was afraid to be alone in the huge house and declined his suggestion. No, Carter. I'd rather go back to my office. It'll be easier for me to forget when I'm among people. Indeed, work helped her get back on track, and a year later, the woman became pregnant again. From the first weeks, she was under serious medical supervision. But at about the same stage, she suffered another miscarriage. The second unsuccessful experience also affected Carter's state of mind. He was no longer as optimistic and became irritable. He was truly upset when Alice failed the advertising campaign for the new product line. Considering the successful previous experience, Mr. Lewis insisted that she be the face of the new product. But at the presentation, the expert's feedback was not very favorable. Carter Lewis. Couldn't you find a more promising face? This woman's expression is so sad that it discourages any desire to buy such a product for a child. Try changing the entire concept. Perhaps a cute boy or girl's face would look more appealing on the packaging. Of course, Mr. Lewis took the specialist's recommendation into account. He immediately told his wife, Alice, you won't be in the advertisement for now. Let the buyers take a break from you. Although he said all this in a peaceful tone, the woman flared up. My face is no longer to your liking? Perhaps you want to replace your wife too? He tried to pass it off as a joke. Alice. Why are you behaving like a little girl? You shouldn't react so painfully. Oh, how should I react then? Should I dance and sing? Don't overreact. Calm down. And we'll discuss later how to approach the advertisement. Alice decided to take the position of an offended righteous person. She sarcastically smiled and said, besides me, there are other specialists in the department. Let Julia use her brain. She expected her husband to try to persuade her, but he calmly responded, all right. I'll assign the project to Julia Morgan. I'm sure she'll find a suitable child for the advertisement. That was a blow to her solar plexus. Alice closed herself off even more and didn't answer her friends' calls. She mentally cursed everyone but herself. She didn't even realize how familiar this role of an offended and unhappy woman had become to her. For almost a week, they didn't speak, and only the day before yesterday did the ice of mistrust begin to melt when Carter told her, "There's a significant event coming up. Our potential partners are organizing it. By the way, what do you think about participating in the promotion of children's underwear? Specifically, sets for girls aged 4 to 6. Alice was surprised. I don't see the connection between underwear and nutrition. The connection is direct. You're still quite the dreamer. Use your imagination. Carter said it rudely, and she responded in the same tone, "It seems my brain has completely dried up, but I still don't understand. What does it have to do with me? You, being a loving and caring mother, pick comfortable and safe clothes for your little daughter." Carter spoke calmly. Suddenly, an image of Zoe appeared before her eyes. This hallucination was so overwhelming that she screamed. Her husband got genuinely scared. "Alice. What's wrong with you?" "Oh, nothing. I just thought I saw something." He continued to inquire about what she saw, but she skillfully changed the subject to the upcoming social event. The whole evening, Mr. Lewis observed his wife, but Alice didn't compromise him in any way. She behaved casually and chatted amiably with Mr. Brooks' wife. The men present were enchanted by her, and that filled the businessman's heart with pride. But at home, Alice became irritable again and, citing a headache, went to sleep in the guest room. Midnight found Carter Lewis contemplating everything happening in his house. He felt that his wife was hiding something from him, and whatever it was, it caused her a sense of panic. He understood that talking to Alice about such matters would be pointless, so he decided to handle it differently. In the morning, he asked his secretary, Zara, "Please invite Leonard Brooks. Tell him it's urgent." The girl immediately set to work, and within a couple of minutes, Mr. Brooks was in Mr. Lewis's office. "Carter. What's with your face? Did you overdo it with alcohol yesterday?" Mr. Lewis smiled wryly. "No, my friend. I know how to handle alcohol. It's just that some thoughts are bothering me, and there's no one to share them with." Leonard Brooks grinned. "What do you mean, no one? What am I here for? If you want to, cry on my shoulder." "Well, Leonard, I won't cry. It's a different matter altogether. It's a very delicate subject, and it concerns my wife." Mr. Brooks looked away. "Finally, it dawned on you. The rose-tinted glasses have shattered, and it seems happiness has also fallen into pieces?" "Leonard. I'm not in the mood for jokes. Can't you understand?" "I understand perfectly, how can I not? I warned you when nothing serious had happened yet. These provincial girls may seem good at first glance, but once you get to know them better, you'd want to run away without looking back." Mr. Lewis interrupted his companion. "Don't rush to conclusions. I'm asking you to discreetly find out everything you can about my wife. I'm interested in her relatives, her closest circle of acquaintances." "You don't have to continue. I get it." It didn't even take 2 days before Mr. Brooks burst into Mr. Lewis's office with a satisfied look on his face. Carter was surprised by his unexpected visit. "Leonard. Why are you so excited? I've brought you the report. Or have you forgotten your request to me?" Mr. Lewis furrowed his brow. "You mean about the competitors?" Mr. Brooks replied with undisguised annoyance. "No. I mean about your dear wife. Well, your memory is as short as a fish's. Be careful with your words. My memory is just fine. I simply didn't expect you to handle it so quickly." Leonard Brooks sprawled lazily in his chair. "So, here's the deal. Your Alice isn't as innocent as she tries to portray herself. This girl has a very dark past. Her parents were seasoned alcoholics. Her father died under mysterious circumstances, and her mother, drowning in sorrow, started drinking even more. In short, she's had a tough life. Mr. Brooks was recounting Alice's life, and Carter couldn't believe that it was all about his wife. In his mind, Alice was a completely different person, incapable of deceitful actions. He couldn't fathom that she had abandoned her brothers and mother. Even if her mother drank heavily, she was still her mother. Leonard Brooks paused. Carter. That's not all. Brace yourself, or better yet, hold on to something. This topic is genuinely delicate. I don't even know how to soften the blow. Leonard. Don't beat around the bush. Just tell me the truth. All right. You see, in her youth, your Alice had a relationship with an older man. He was an instructor at the college where she studied. The girl fell in love with him, but he left her. Long story short, she ended up with a child from that affair. She gave birth to a girl. Her grandmother took care of the child, but she passed away quickly. Alice moved to the city with her daughter after selling her grandmother's apartment. With the money, she hired a woman, who happened to be the nanny of the girl. That nanny told me everything in great detail. I also found out a few things from the neighbors. Alice's mother, Mrs. Jackson, passed away, but it seems your wife doesn't even know about it. Mr. Lewis was as dark as a thundercloud. A girl? A daughter? What about her? Mr. Brooks shrugged. My informant doesn't know. Mrs. King told me everything in detail until the moment Alice took the girl from her. She said Alice came for the child in her car. By her description, I understood it was your old car. Yes, I lent it to her for a day. That was about 3 years ago, right before our wedding. Mr. Brooks stood waiting, but Carter seemed to have forgotten he was there. So, his companion decided to remind him, are there any other tasks? Carter shook his head. No. I need to digest all this. Mr. Brooks patted his friend on the shoulder. Don't lose hope, my old buddy. Just let Alice go. Aren't there plenty of other girls around? Carter looked into his friend's eyes. There are many girls, but I love her. Do you understand? I love Alice madly. I didn't want to delve into her past, but she's become so unstable. I fear for her mental health now. And now, I don't even know what to do with all of this. That's not something I can assist with. You have to decide for yourself. As Leonard Brooks headed towards the door, Carter stopped him. Listen. I have one more request. Find that girl, Alice's daughter. You mean Alice Jackson's daughter? You want to have a face-to-face meeting? All right, I'll try my best. When Mr. Brooks left, Carter Lewis called his secretary, Zara. I'm away. I've left. And if Alice Jackson asks for you? I said I'm away, and I'm away for her too. Until late in the evening, he stayed in his office, trying to find an answer to the main question, what should he do? How could he escape this quagmire that had ensnared not only Alice, but himself as well? He returned home late, hoping that Alice was already asleep. His wife indeed didn't come to see him, and he slipped into the bedroom with relief. He thought he was tired from all the thoughts and would fall asleep quickly, but sleep eluded him. For some reason, he remembered how he laughed at Alice when he received several traffic fines. He accused her of deceiving him, and she assured him that she had no experience in driving. But then he realized that he had bought the car for Alice just 2 days after proposing to her. The car was registered in her name. Therefore, if she had committed any traffic violations, the fines would have come to her. This meant that he could at least figure out where Alice had been driving. Carter dialed his friend's number. Leonard. Are you still awake? No. I was about to go to bed. What's up? You see, I remembered one detail. Maybe it will help you. 2 weeks passed. Alice. I can't stand your sour face any longer. How about we go for a drive in the car? I don't want to. You must. Alice, it's essential. You have no idea what surprise awaits you at the end of the drive. Alice glanced irritably at her husband. I guess I won't be able to refuse then, right? You understand correctly, Alice. Carter hugged her and thought that maybe people who keep snakes as pets feel the same way. You embrace them because you love them, but at the same time, you know you're holding a dangerous and repulsive creature. When Leonard said he found the girl, Carter hesitated for a long time before asking. Where was she, and how did she end up there? Leonard correctly interpreted his silence. Listen, my friend. Honestly, I don't know how to tell you all this. As much as I like Alice, even I didn't expect this from her. Carter said quietly, tell me. She took the girl to an abandoned village. There wasn't a single inhabited house in the village at that time, and she simply left her daughter in an empty, cold house. Without food, without anything, and then she left. All to marry you calmly, knowing that the terrified child would die there from cold and hunger. I don't know if there are animals that behave the same way. No. This can't be. No. Yes, Carter. By a very fortunate coincidence, a man arrived here after about a day or more. And by an even more fortunate coincidence, the girl was in his house. He even asked the police for help, but it's hard to find the relatives of a child nobody is looking for. What's happening with her now? She's doing well now. Although she still doesn't have any documents. There seem to be some peculiar laws here. She calls this man her grandpa, and he treats her like his own. Carter made an instant decision. Send me the location on the navigator. Can you stay there until tomorrow? It seemed that Leonard was even pleased. Listen. You can read my mind. The owner invited me to stay in the sauna just 5 minutes ago. I'll quickly head back to the city. I'll buy some goodies for her. You know, I had a thought. Of course, you might not think about it now, but take a good look at the little girl. I think her face could shake the advertising world. Leonard turned off his phone, and Carter covered his face with his hands. No. No. This can't be. Maybe there's an explanation for everything. But he already knew that an explanation had been found. An explanation for Alice's behavior, her panic, and fears. And also, an explanation for why they didn't have children. Perhaps God doesn't grant children to those who once turned away from them. Carter had never been superstitious, but now this thought firmly settled in his mind. He also realized that he wouldn't be able to look Alice in the eyes today. He picked up the phone. Darling. How are you? Fine. Listen. We have a lot of work piled up. We'll be working until 2 in the morning, and then I'll crash here. I don't want to drive at night. Alice held her breath. Does my husband have a mistress? Well, no. It's not that. She had worked so hard to reach her prosperity only to lose her happiness because of someone else unintentionally. She decided that in the morning, she would thoroughly check all his pockets, his jacket, his shirt. She would even smell them, just in case there were any unfamiliar scents. And if she could find his phone, she would check that too. But when Carter arrived, he immediately dragged her somewhere, and she calmed down a little. Men don't act like that just after cheating. They drove for so long that the exhausted Alice fell asleep. In her sleep, her face relaxed, and Carter saw a completely different Alice. A tormented woman with tightly pressed lips. In that moment, she stopped being beautiful. As if she had partially revealed her soul. Honestly, Carter was even a little scared and preferred not to look at his wife again. When they entered that same village, Alice opened her eyes and looked around. I don't understand. Where did you bring me? Are we pretending this shack is paradise? She looked at the old, crooked houses with disgust. Carter was tired of this act. Especially since the navigator showed that they were only about 300 meters away from the point. And you quickly got used to the good life and forgot about such houses. Alice turned to her husband. What do you mean? Do you even know that your mother has passed away? The woman turned pale. How do you? The bird on the tail brought the news. He stopped the car and looked into Alice's eyes. When I found out that you heartlessly left your mother and all your brothers without any help, and then left without a care to marry me, I was shocked, but I defended you. Who knows what kind of life you had? How much you suffered? I even thought that your current state might be due to the distress over your relatives. Alice breathed a sigh of relief. I never thought that you would be pleased with such a family background. You knew you were marrying a simple girl. I never hid that from you. Or are you now unsatisfied with a wife from such roots? Carter watched her closely, as if expecting something. Alice simply looked back defiantly. He sighed. Yes, no. It's not about your roots, but about you. Oh, come on, Carter. Why all this drama? I'll do the advertisement. Trust me, everyone will love it. Can we go home now? Get out. I'm not going anywhere. Alice tried to argue, but Carter yelled, "Get out." She fearfully opened the car door and stepped out. He took her by the elbow. Let's go. She silently obeyed. They walked into the yard and climbed the porch. Only then did Alice notice a familiar car in the yard. Wait. Is that Leonard's car? I was wondering who did all this. You know, Leonard used to bother me. But I didn't tell you to avoid ruining your relationship. She waited for his reaction, realizing that she would have to work hard to rebuild her place now. Carter nodded briefly. I know. He told me. Alice was taken aback. In the corridor, there was a familiar and unpleasant smell. She stopped abruptly and looked around. No. This can't be. This is just a coincidence. The house reminded her of the one she left Zoe in. Yes, no. This doesn't suit us at all. Carter silently pushed the door open. She entered and immediately slumped against the wall. Her daughter was looking at her. No. She couldn't see anyone else in the room, and the little girl approached her. You didn't come. You said you would come, and you didn't. I was scared. You're bad. And Zoe threw a rabbit plushie at her, which Alice had once given her to distract her. The girl rushed to the elderly man who stood at the table. He gently picked her up and hugged her. He couldn't contain himself. How did you manage to live all this time? You knew how torturous her death would be. Alice rushed out of the house. She ran out of the gates and fell to the ground in helplessness. Her mind was blank. She heard footsteps. It was Carter. I was so afraid that as soon as you found out about the child, you would leave me immediately. He remained silent. You don't understand. I lived as if in hell. Like in a dumpster. I wanted to escape so badly. It was almost working out for me. You know, and then this. The nanny refused to take care of Zoe. I had no other choice. Nothing else but to ruin her? Alice choked on her tears. Hear me out. Understand the state I was in. In an adequate state. You even bought curtains so that I wouldn't ask questions. You planned everything down to the smallest detail. If Zoe had died, I probably wouldn't have found out. I don't even know what to call you. It hurt so much. I genuinely loved you. Alice fell to her knees, trying to catch his hands. Carter. Carter. Please forgive me. Please. I'll fix everything, you'll see. Now, can we go home? He remained silent. Take this. You'll find your way to the city. You have a few hours to gather your things. Mind you, if I find you at home, I will file a police report about what you've done. In prison, they will tear you apart. He turned around and headed to the house. Alice fell to the ground, reaching out to him. Carter. Carter. He didn't turn around. 3 minutes later, his car drove away from the house. Zoe looked attentively at the unfamiliar man. She definitely liked him. The little girl approached and put her hand on his. Carter flinched. He was so lost in his thoughts that he didn't immediately remember where he was. I like you. Will you play with me? Carter smiled, and the little girl smiled back instantly. He raised an eyebrow. Wow. Such dimples. Leonard chuckled. What are you saying? Carter continued looking at Zoe. Well, what should we do now? He turned to Neville Green. I'm taking the child to the city. After all, I'm still legally married to her mother. We'll sort out the documents. The elderly man sighed. I understand that you have the right to. Probably. But maybe you could tell me what's next? I assume you're divorcing her mother? What will happen to Zoe? Will you send her to an orphanage? Carter almost choked. No. There's no way that's going to happen. First, I'll hire a nanny. Then I'll figure out the documents, and after that, we'll see how things go. This child has been through too much to be unhappy in the future. Neville hugged Zoe close to him. Sunshine. When you grow up, be sure to visit me. God willing, I'll still be around. I'll wait for you. Zoe looked bewilderedly at him, then at Carter. The little girl seemed to be deep in thought for a moment and then exclaimed, I'll come visit you during the holidays. All the adults smiled. Due to Zoe's age, school holidays were still far away. Carter got up. Neville Green. I would like to invite you to my place. I understand. Summer in the village is good. Well, at least for the winter. Zoe loves you, and she needs positive emotions. The old man's eyes sparkled. I'll come. I'll definitely come. Zoe, seemingly nervous, fell asleep on the back seat. Leonard, confidently driving the car along the country road, asked softly, Carter. What's next? What do you plan to do with the child? With Alice? Carter sighed. Good question, Leonard. Let's start with Alice. She's no longer in my life. No, to the point that I want to forget her name as soon as possible. Are you sure? Absolutely. I think you'll be able to arrange everything quickly, won't you? Fine. No problem. Carter turned and looked at the sleeping girl. You know, Leonard. I'll adopt her. Only I can make sure Zoe has a good life and becomes a good person. If you help me with this too, I'll be indebted to you for life. Leonard suddenly brightened up. Carter looked surprised. What's so amusing? Trying to dissuade me? The man shook his head. No, you see, Zoe is so sociable, sincere. Despite everything, she's trusting, and it makes you want to protect her, to give her something good. I thought if you don't come to the idea of adopting her, I'll go to her mother to ask for her blessing and adopt her myself. Carter smiled.
Ha!
Listen, Leonard. Since you've gotten yourself knee-deep into this mess, would you mind helping me track down all of Alice's relatives? Sure, I can do that. Why? To help? I'm not sure. I just want to do something to help. Well, without making myself too obvious. I understand you. I'll do it, but first, let's take care of Alice and Zoe. Carter nodded in agreement. As soon as there was a signal on his phone, he called his secretary. Zara. You have a couple of hours to find me the best nanny with accommodations. Money is not an issue. I want a genuinely good person. Over the years of working together, Zara had proven herself to be a true professional. Yes, Carter Lewis. It will be done. She hung up the phone and looked at Julia. They were having tea together. After Alice stopped communicating with Julia, they became close friends. I don't understand anything. What's going on? Neither Leonard Brooks nor Carter Lewis, and apparently, both of them are far away, but now they need a nanny. A nanny. Can you imagine? I don't understand anything. Julia said in surprise, well, it's like some detective story. You know, like in TV series? The boss, a girl gives birth, and he doesn't even know. Then she dies, and he ends up with the child, not knowing what to do. Zara even spat. Well, you're such a fantasizer, Julia. The first advertisement featuring Zoe was simply stunning. In the morning, Leonard came to Carter's office. Did you see it? Did you see that? Everyone has gone crazy. The ratings are off the charts, right? We've never had anything like this in the entire history of the company. Carter smiled. Well, she's my daughter. Leonard sat down. You talk about her as if she really were yours. Well, I think she is. You know, sometimes I forget that Zoe is not my biological daughter. I feel like if someone were to give me a daughter, she would be just like Zoe. Sometimes I think about not letting her know who her mother is. But then I realize that too many people already know about it, so I stop myself. A year had passed since they brought the girl to the city. The nanny was an elderly woman, a former educator who was no longer needed by her own children. Every day she told Carter that this child was not just a child but a miracle. They had already started learning Chinese, and in the evenings, Carter watched them with interest instead of watching TV. As promised, Leonard had found Alice's relatives. The older brothers were in the military. After they were drafted, they decided to stay there. Now they were no longer ordinary soldiers, they had some rank, but they had no intention of coming back. Carter went to visit them, and they talked for a long time. Both of them said that they would like to see Zoe and bring her gifts, but nothing more. 3 younger children were still in the orphanage. They were all on the register, and their future didn't look very bright. Carter decided to give them a chance. The one who loved computers was transferred to a place where they were engaged in them quite intensely. The second one, who was always drawing, had his art school tuition paid for. And the third one was enrolled in the boxing club of a famous boxer who ran a private training circle, as he was constantly getting into fights. Leonard said, "You know, I didn't sleep well today. Something was bothering me, and I only realized what it was at 4 in the morning." Carter laughed. "And what is it? Say it quickly, because if you haven't forgotten, we have to go to Neville's in the evening. He's built a new sauna." Leonard rubbed his hands.
Oh no.
"I won't trade the sauna for anything. But the thought that came to me was this: we should develop some new children's line. Call it a Zoe, and make her the face of it, like your daughter. Let it not be children's food, but maybe children's hygiene products or toys. Anything, really. Chocolate." "What chocolate?" "Chocolate that all children can eat without causing allergies and is even beneficial for them." Leonard looked at his friend. "Well, chocolate could work. You think about the rest. I'll join in later. But now I need to go to the store. I promised Neville Green a good fishing rod." Carter laughed. "Well, you didn't promise, you lost to Neville in a bet. I remember how you yelled that you'd stay longer than him in the sauna. And Zoe was pouring cold water on you." Leonard looked offended. "Isn't it hard for you to live with such an excellent memory?" Carter turned serious. "Sometimes, it's very difficult." Zoe jumped around Neville Green. "Grandpa. I missed you so much." The man finally managed to pick her up. "Well, hello, my star. They say you've become a real celebrity? And who's this with you?" "This is my nanny. She's nice, just like you. You'll definitely become friends." For some reason, the nanny blushed, and so did Neville. Carter winked at Leonard, and both of them barely held back their laughter. It seemed that very soon, the nanny would be mentioning that the girl needed more time outdoors. Alice sat at the table. The tablecloth was stained all over, but she couldn't care less about it. Such trivial things no longer bothered her. In just a year, Alice had transformed from a socialite into an ordinary woman. Moreover, with specific swellings on her face. She stared at the TV screen attentively, shaking her fist. "You scumbags. And who will pay me for giving birth to such a beautiful girl?" You're pocketing all the money for yourselves. She managed to take a sip and take a bite from her only sandwich before the next TV commercial started, and she began to cry. My daughter. They took you away from your mother, you bastards. My heart is bleeding. A creak was heard from the sofa. Will you shut up or not? Alice cowered in fear. She met this man 2 months ago. Not a bad guy. The problem was he hardly drank at all. Yet, he scolded her for it. Not just scolded, but threatened her every time. She would brag about her influential acquaintances, but he would just laugh in response. Look at yourself. Some millionaire's wife you claim to be. You made up stories as if they were believable fairy tales. Drunkard. Eventually, everything fell silent, and Alice continued to watch the TV in complete silence. She kept watching until the bottle was empty. Then, arguing seemed uninteresting, and the woman went to sleep, firmly promising herself to think about how to get money from Carter tomorrow. However, she only remembered these promises when she was drinking, and immediately made the same promise again.